This is Maximize Your Influence as we take the podcast a little bit deeper. We talked about on the podcast this week about emotional intelligence and lying and deception. We took a deep dive to figure out emotions and that, of course, that EQ, that emotional intelligence. And you know this, is that your EQ is more important than your success in detecting deception, and your relationships and your IQ, your actual intelligence. And a lot of people don't even understand it. They don't even take a class on how it works. And there's really 4 aspects of emotional intelligence. The first one is you have to identify that emotion. What is that emotion? What are you feeling? It's not this weird sensation inside. You know exactly that's anger, resentment, frustration, that's happiness, that's surprise. Being able to identify that emotion is the first step of emotional intelligence. The second is to understand the why and the what, okay? Why is this happening? What's going on? What do I need to do about it? It's not just this feeling that you're feeling. Emotions are like gauges on your car. They're telling you what's happening on the inside. You don't just ignore them. You're looking at those gauges. Those are your emotions. You have to be aware of them. The third one is how do you leverage these emotions? Your own emotions, get in the right state. We all know that great persuaders get in the right state. They stay in the right state. They're more persuasive. I mean, when you feel persuasive, you are more persuasive. There's study after study on that. How do you leverage those and how do you trigger those in the person that you're trying to persuade? How do you get them in the right emotional state to make them easier to persuade, to understand them better, to create more empathy, and to be more persuasive? The fourth one is you've got to manage those emotions, both for you and other people. Understand them, identify them, use them, manage them. That's a key factor to your emotional intelligence. Then you can use emotions to your benefit, or maybe you need to handle emotion before you persuade. And that's a big factor. For example, anger. Anger is an interesting one. Some people love to be angry. People don't realize that emotions can be addicting. When you feel an emotion, it releases neuropeptides in your body, and those can become addicting. There's a physiological response. When you're angry, blood leaves the brain, fight or flight, right? And you're just not thinking straight. So how do you deal with someone that's angry? Because when they're in a high state of anger, they're very difficult to persuade. So how do you deal with that angry person? Well, first thing you don't want to do is just say, oh, you shouldn't be angry. Because we do that with our kids. Oh, you shouldn't be sad. You shouldn't be angry. And they're like, I am, right? You have to validate the emotion. It's real to them. And realize that there is a physiological response. If it's intense anger, it's going to take them 20 minutes to reset. So I wouldn't start persuading. I would take a walk, take a break, reschedule, do something different. Maybe you can apologize. Apology is cheap. Have you heard that before? Just say, I'm sorry, that was not my intent. And they'll say, well, don't do it again. You're like, okay. Move on. Because with anger, they're looking for someone to blame. Let them blame you. If it's appropriate, it's not always appropriate, but that might work in the situation. Maybe some type of distraction. Remember going to monitor negotiation, they were upstairs already fighting, and I got up the stairs. They didn't even notice I was there. And on the top of the stairs was this box of packing peanuts. The lid was open, so I just kicked it down the stairs. Peanuts everywhere. Peanuts everywhere. And they looked at the peanuts, they looked at me, they looked at the peanuts, they looked at me, and just enough time to get a little more blood back in the brain. And they calmed down, realized that they were out of control. Sometimes you can find a common enemy. Not you or your neighbor or your coworkers or your CEO or your company, but if you can find that common enemy, the economy, the government, and let's get angry together, diffuse it, work through it, could be an answer. And if it's just low anger, maybe just a question, get them to think about it again, what would you do? Those type of things are very helpful. This tip, number 1, most important, don't try to persuade when they're really, really angry because it's not going to work out. They're going to start blaming you and get angry with you. That is the key factor to your success. So hey, like us, subscribe us, come to MaximizeYourInfluence.com. The link is below to get the podcast so you can understand more about deception and emotional intelligence. Take your persuasion IQ test, go to Influence University, and go out and persuade with power.